DiCaprio comes in, he's got 4 dead men on 4 horses, and I say, what's that? I said, who's that? And he says, it's the Verdugo brothers, Woody, Fred, Lyle, whatever. and then I say, you don't ever bring him home alive now, do you?
Wow, do I love Westerns. And you know who else loves Westerns? Quentin Tarantino, and he shot Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that has flashbacks to the Westerns of the 50s and 60s. Somebody was in that who's a good friend of ours who's made Wyatt Earp, Return to Tombstone, and a lot of other Westerns too. His name is Marty Kove. Come on in, Marty.
Hey, big boy.
Hey, pal. That was a thump from our mics, but have a seat.
Passion we have for Westerns.
We do. We love them, and it's great that the genre has a resurgence every once in a while. And Quentin, I think, is responsible for part of that because of the success of Django Unchained. It was his most successful feature. You're in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
He called and he offered me the part, and it's little vignettes. The movie's made of a lot of vignettes because I think everybody in Hollywood, no matter how many lines you have, they'd like to work in a Quentin Tarantino movie. So even if, I remember James Remar played a second part after his first part in the beginning, and he had a beard and he was killed at the top of Django. And then he played a silent role as the bodyguard to DiCaprio, later on in the movie. But, he was on the set when I was on the set. And I play a sheriff, and DiCaprio comes in, he's a bounty hunter, and what it is, it's a scene about his new series, and the bounty law. And he's a bounty hunter, and he brings these 4, I'm the sheriff, and we're sitting there, and Quentin has me on a chair opposite a post, and it was too far back. And I said, somehow, Quentin, are we paying homage to my darling Clementine here? And he says, how'd you know that? And he says, I'm as good as you with Western titles. So we move the chair closer, and the post is here, and he puts his feet up, and I put the feet up, and I start doing the dance, like Fonda does. And he says, no, we can't do that. We're shooting through you. We can't have you do the dance. So otherwise, the scene was exactly like, my darling Clementine. And DiCaprio comes in, he's got 4 dead men on 4 horses, and I say, what's that? I said, who's that? And he says, it's the Verdugo brothers, Woody, Fred, Lyle, whatever. and then I say, you don't ever bring him home alive now, do you? And we exchange a big smile, and he says, not when there's 1 of me and 4 of them, But it was just so much fun because it was the promo for the new series that he's doing in the 60s. And it's the story of Brad Pitt, who's his stuntman, and DiCaprio, who is the star. And he's now, he was doing fast draw stuff. And it was like, that day they were doing all the promo things for the new series. So you see him draw, and the dialogue with an announcer would be, like Steve McQueen, wanted, dead or alive. And Steve McQueen, starring Steve McQueen as Josh Randall, And that's what it was the whole day. And
what was his set like? Was there a lot of extras, or was there a lot of food and craft services?
There was a truck for everything that you've ever eaten. They had a truck for Amazon berries that give you energy, special truck. They had a popcorn and ice cream truck, special truck. They had, and these are big trucks. I did Wyatt Earp. The budget was $90 million, I think, and we were on the desert of Santa Fe, and we had oysters and shrimp and everything. They had more on this, and it was a local set. It was a local set in Melody Ranch, and of course, Westworld had built so much of that up, and Deadwood built so much of that ranch up that it was a pleasure to shoot there. And I spent a whole week fast drawing. I called Phil Spangenberger and I said, I want to do a cross draw. And because I got to be prepared because Tarantino improvises so much. So I said, I really have to be fast. Even though my scene is not written that way, I have to be fast because he might throw a gunfight right in there. And he didn't, thank God, But, he was very receptive. And I asked him, how come, you wanted me for this? Because I've been bugging you for 3 years to do a Western. I wanted Hateful Eight, I wanted Django. And I said, is it because I'm, very prominent in the new Cobra Kai series from the Karate Kid characters? Is it because I'm hot or because I've been driving you nuts for 3 years? And he looks at me and he says, a little bit of both. So it was a gas, and he came up to me and he said, you were so helpful with the wardrobe, because his girls had only done 3:10 to Yuma. And they tried me out in frock coats and short coats and, all the stuff I have in the house. We use it on the ride. And I would say, well, this hat is a Montana hat, and this hat is a Texas hat. And I educated them, because this was, in the 60s, everything was so bastardized. Everything was how cool you look. And as Westerns got later on, as we all know, the movies became more realistic, and the garb became more realistic. They had holsters slung real low, and it was fun. I mean, I brought Sammy Davis Jr. back in the 70s, gave me his rig, his double rig, and on the back of the double rig it said Sammy Davis Jr., and Arvo Ojala made it. And of course, I went back there with him, and I kidnapped him in Charlie's Angels. This is like 1977. And he went back to his trailer, and he was so fast. This cat was the fastest in Hollywood. And he knew how much I was a Western enthusiast even then. I had done Gunsmoke a couple years earlier and couldn't stop talking about it.
And you still can't stop talking about it now.
It was on last week.
I know it.
Really
I got it.
It was on. I haven't seen it in so long. I watched it. And he gives me his rig. He says, I want you to have it. So
You had a small waist back then?
I had to put an extension. I had to put an extension on the waist, and still it didn't fit, because the holster sat on your ass. The holster sat all the way back there, because he had a tiny waist. So I bring it to the set, and I figured, this is just getting dust and sitting on my saddles and all that, and I'm not using it because it doesn't fit. And who would appreciate it as much as I would? Quentin Tarantino.
Maybe you'll be in his next movie, too. Let's hear from Marty Kove.
And the funny thing about the premiere is I missed my scene, because my scene was trimmed down. So I was the very first person to talk in the movie. And it's a black and white sequence of Bounty Law. And I have, much longer scene with DiCaprio. And it was really trimmed down. So we were given the wrong seats in the theater. So we had to move, and I'm the first one to speak in the movie. So I never heard or saw myself, and went through the whole movie thinking, well, I guess he cut me out, And then Eli Roth comes up to me in the lobby and says, Marty, you were great. We didn't see enough of you, but you were great. I guess about 3 months later, I bumped into Tom Rothman, who's the head of the studio at Sony. And I said, Tom, once upon a time in Hollywood, party for home video. And so Tom was there, and I said, I know Tom. And I said, Tom, my scene was a lot longer. And he said, Marty, he says, if I kept everybody's scene in there at their length that he shot it, it would be a 7.5-hour movie. So that'll give you a reason, And about 10 minutes later, in the lobby, my publicist said, you were terrific. I heard you were great. You were very short, but it was terrific. So then I really knew I was in the movie. And then I went again with you to see it the next week. And I saw myself, and whatever. And friends of mine have photographed it with their little phones and sent it to me while they watched it on the plane, So it's just, he's just such a great guy, and he knows everything about your resume. He knows everything good and bad that you've done forever, and he's a lot of fun. So it's like, making movies with someone who's 12, and you're 12, So it's just the best, very best. So we just had such a good time, and at the end of the shoot, he does this classic thing where he says, Marty, I think I got it, but I want one more. And he turns around to 150 men in the crew and says, and you know why? And they all scream in unison, because we love to make movies.
My name is Rob Word, and we love bringing these programs to you. We've got a lot more scheduled coming up. We post a new one every single week, and we want you to subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching.